Hi, my name is Alejandro Pérez Pérez, and this is the AI Coffee Podcast. Every week, you will have one disruptive aspect of technology and artificial intelligence for the time to drink a cup of coffee. Today, we are going to go deep into how to implement AI ethically and efficiently if you are working for a big company. And as you might know, and if you follow me, and you know, my website is alejandroperezperez.com. But if you follow me since some months, you might know that I work as a consultant and also teaching how to implement AI using ethically techniques and methods, and also try to understand how to implement it correctly to obtain the maximum value at the end. And of course, if we are talking about investments, AI it could be a very good investment for your company, for your team, for your project, wherever you are. And I have been talking in the last episode. I have been alone. I have been talking about how to implement AI if you are working for an NGO or for the public sector. But today I want to talk about how to implement AI for big companies, because I have been working for big companies for almost 7 years, and I knew that big companies have specifically issues that are very, very important and relevant while working with AI. And you know that you can contact me if you want to know more about maybe your topic, your domain, your field of working, your project, your whatever. Just contact me. You have all my contacts below. And also, you know that if you talk in Spanish, that most of my audience, I know that you speak Spanish, you can follow my newsletter. It's a new newsletter I have launched a couple of weeks ago. Uh, its name is Diseña IA para Humanos, and you can see it in alejandro.com/newsletter. You can access to it and subscribe to it. And every week, I will send you a specific use case, very, very focused, and not like the new trend of how to use whatever. No. I will be focusing on creating value and real value. For example, one of the last ones was related to countryside, how to really obtain value for the countryside um, just by using a specific techniques of AI. And apparently it was nice, so I recommend you to go to it, go to this newsletter, subscribe it. I will be super happy if you can subscribe if you haven't subscribed it yet. And also, of course, if you have specific topics that you want me to talk about in this podcast, or for example in the newsletter, just reach me out. And now, talking about how to implement AI in a business, in a big company, in a big corporation, inside a project, wherever you are, right? So let's imagine that you are, for example, leading a project or leading a department. Okay. So, what's the first thing you need to think about if you are thinking about implementing AI? I mean, and I don't mind which type of AI you want to implement, because it could be generative AI, it could be machine learning, could be whatever. But at the end, the first thing you need to have, like 99% of the time, what you need to have at the beginning is data. And this is obvious for me. Maybe it's obvious for you, but I have seen many times that a project cannot start just because we don't have enough data, or even we don't have any data. And this might be obvious because at the end, AI, what it does is more or less do statistics with data. And of course, it's super advanced and almost magical statistics. But at the end, we need data for training this AI, or for using these AIs, like really creating value in our project or in our department, right? So the first thing we need to think is about data. So the first thing is obtaining data and having data. Maybe you have Excel files. This is very, very common. But yeah, this is the beginning. Let's say it's nice that you have these Excel files, but at the end, we cannot do most of the things if you have only Excel files disconnected. Maybe you, as the director, you have some Excels, but also the other people of your department have other Excel files with other data. So it's super hard to start with this, but it's something. So this is like the minimum, right? So what we need to do, not only having data, but having qualified and good data. So the next step we need to have is a structured database or a structured data quality, whatever. We don't really mind the name, but what we need to have is all the data you have in your department, your company, your project. We need to have it structured. And this is also very obvious, maybe, but many cases it's not, because we have islands of data. This is the term we sometimes say, and maybe one department has one server with the data, another has a notion with all the data, another one uses I don't know, Microsoft, whatever. I mean, it's super. This is very common. So what we need to have is, okay, let's do a process first of structuring the data. If we talk about, I don't know, the field customer, are we talking about the same thing in all the departments of your company? Maybe not. Even inside one department, maybe they have different names for a customer. Or maybe the customer, we have customer with capital letters, and this means the name of the customer, but then customer with the first letter in capital letter and the rest in, let's say, lower letter, like the other kind of letters. Maybe it means an ID, and I mean, this is super complicated. So we need to do an effort on structuring this data, and this is like the beginning of everything. So imagine that we have this data, we have a really good quality data, structured and homogenized in the company, and we are sure that whenever we talk about customer, we talk about, I don't know, margin, we talk about different things like that, we are saying the same things. Okay, so the second step, okay, let's find the things, the possible ways that we can implement AI in our favor, just to let's say replace some of our different actions or different activities that our employees, our departments in our company are doing. So the second thing we need to do is doing a list of all the things that your company is doing. So, for example, if we are inside the marketing department, for example, and you are leading the department, maybe you need to talk about that with almost everyone, and maybe you are going to have one person writing posts for LinkedIn, for example, another one creating the creativities for Instagram. I don't know, it will depend, of course, on your field of working, but imagine that we have different people, so we need to have a list of actions. And also with this list, what we need to have is, okay, how much money do they cost? And this is maybe difficult at the beginning, but it's not so difficult, because of course we can ask to these people that they are doing this, okay, how much time more or less does it take? Maybe you have already this track somewhere, but if you haven't, it's nice to ask that. And maybe these people are going to tell you, okay, maybe it takes around 5 hours, it takes two people 2 weeks for doing that. I mean, it will depend, of course, of the actions. And of course, you know more or less how much money do they cost, and not how much money do they earn, because maybe you have also taxes and things that you need to pay for them. So write exactly more or less the amount of money related to this action. So if they are, I don't know, wow, 1,000 euros or dollars or whatever, or 10,000 or 500,000. Okay, write all of them. And then another really important thing is, okay, can we replace, let's say, these actions by a machine? I mean, does it make any sense? For example, if your company is working for directly with customers, imagine that, and imagine that one of the main values of your company is that, even though it could be a little bit more expensive, but the connection with your customers is super nice. All of them are super happy. They rely on you. They really think that this is super important. Maybe even though it could be expensive, let's say, to continue doing this by humans, it has a lot of sense to continue doing that by humans. So don't replace that. But imagine that even though in that situation, you spend a lot of time creating creativities for the media, for example, and you discover that this is, I don't know, 10,000 euros per month. And you say, okay, is it really important to do that by hand, by a person? Maybe not. Or maybe yes. I mean, it will depend on you, of course, but you need to make these decisions. And then with this list, you will have a real overview of all the actions you have, or most of the actions you have on your company or department. How much money do they cost? And if you can automatize them. This is like the idea, right? Also, if you have imagination and creativity, you can try to add new things that you haven't done it yet. Imagine that you want to forecast the future sales for the next year in different conditions. I mean, you can add whatever you want, and you can try to have an estimation of how much money would they cost to do it by hand, by humans. Okay. So with this list, I recommend you to start by the beginning, like the top three, top five actions, not more, because of course we can do everything. But I mean, maybe it's not so nice or so worth it to do everything at the same time. So start by the beginning, the first three, the first two, the first five. It's up to you. And with this top whatever, you go to the step three. So the step three is okay, let's try to design a system using the data you have, also knowing the values and the pains you have as a company, and also maybe understanding, okay, the limitations of it, because maybe the data you have is not enough for maybe doing that. But the good thing is that if you have done a good effort at the beginning in the first step, you might have a good data lake, a good environment for just adding new data. So it's going to be a little bit quick. Maybe it takes time because it depends on the data, of course, but it's going to be quicker than just starting from zero, because you have a lot of data, you have a lot of knowledge about how to do qualify data, and maybe you need some data more. So imagine that you need this more data. Okay, we can have it, and then we're going to create the first MVP of the solution for the first pains that you have, the first things you want to create an AI for. So this is the end? No, of course not. We need to iterate this process a lot of times, because AI is something that at the beginning, if you only work like that, like well, one step, one directly, one way, maybe it is going to be biased and it's going to have hallucinations, and it's maybe not to be so good. So what you maybe need to have is a good at this step. You are going to have a lot of communications between the employees. You're going to try how to use this system, also have communications with the IT department that you're working with, or the freelance you're working with, or the agency, or whatever that you're working with for designing this thing. And little by little, in a couple of weeks, months, years, depending on how big this project would be, you're going to have a system, an AI system that is going to use your data, secure data also as well, and with the main ideas, the main elements you want to implement for, and really well proof and tested. So this is the end? No, not yet. Whenever you have this, you are almost done. But when you have a fourth step, which is super, super necessary, and it's okay, you need now a moment of learning, teaching. You need to teach your employees, or you need to teach even your customers, depending on what are you building, how to be to use this AI, because it's not obvious. It's not like a calculator. Even calculators I use badly sometimes. So we need people on your company to use AI correctly. Because imagine that you are leading the HR department, for example, and you have built a system that directly takes the CVs from all the possible candidates of one specific position on the company, and do, I don't know, scrapping of it, and analyzing the data, and maybe suggesting the best 10 candidates just for human to look at them. Maybe that could be a good idea, right? It will reduce the time and the money you use for these processes, and also for the people watching at that, maybe they might know that most of the candidates, the CVs, are completely out of context. So maybe, yeah, it's going to be nice because they are focused on the specific, they focus the time on the specific or the most possible candidates, right? So imagine that we have this situation. Even if the system, the AI, is correctly implemented, is secure in terms of biases, is really like ethical, let's say, we're going to have a potential risk of still having other biases that we have not known, because this is, as I said, this is very iterative. It's almost impossible to build something using AI, and of course, if we are using generative AI, it's even worse. We cannot do anything perfect. It's impossible. So we need that these people use the system as the best as possible to reduce these biases, these worst problems. And it could be so funny that, for example, if the HR manager or the person working with this AI asks the system if one candidate is the best, is better than another one, for example, because maybe they hesitate about two candidates, imagine that. If the question is incorrectly done, maybe you are biasing the answer. So imagine that, for example, on your company, you have people called Alejandro, as me, for example, that did in the past really, really bad things. So, and you have this data. You have tracked that Alejandro's in past work badly. So you have this data in your company. Then the AI is trained, trying to understand, okay, trying to avoid gender bias, trying to avoid other biases, just to have a clean algorithm that don't discriminate anyone, but don't think about the names, for example. So if you ask the system, for example, as the HR person, professional, is Alejandro better than other name? Okay. Maybe, and probably, even though maybe I could be the best option, the algorithm would say no, because the other person, whatever, right? And the problem is that the algorithm is not going to tell you most of the time that Alejandro is worse because in the past other people named Alejandro did bad things. Because if, of course, the person received that information, of course, the person would say, okay, that's a stupid answer, right? But imagine that you only said, it's better the other person. You're going to, if you ask that way, you are going to think that AI have thought that this person, the second one, is better than Alejandro. But maybe it's not. And how can you think and do the questions right? This is why you need good prompting, let's say formation, teaching to do that. Maybe what you need to do is, okay, between person A and person B with these requirements or with these specifications, which one is better? And trying to be as aseptic and objective as possible, because it could be the biases could be super crazy, such as, for example, as I said, the name, even the age, the street, maybe. I mean, you could have stupid biases, and in some cases they're going to affect, of course, your procedures, because if you're not hiring the best, you are hiring just because this name is not good, for example, or the things like that, you're going to have a problem on your company. And of course, we are not talking even about ethics, that of course this is not ethical. We're discriminated for names, for whatever. It's even worse because you're going to affect your results, because you might have better options, better candidates, but you're not taking them just because these stupid things that you cannot even control. So you need to be really careful about using it well, using it carefully. Also, during a while between you test also this, you need some time also between using this, like with a lot of trust, a lot of confidence, and at the beginning you need to validate that. Maybe you need more iterations. Maybe the product is not finished. Maybe you need more things to be done in the middle. And it's so important to have this 4 step of thinking about that, knowing, and also I guess in this specific point, this education, these courses are super necessary, because having this eye about, okay, how to use AI ethically is super interesting. And it goes from, as I said, all the employees until even the directors, the managers, because even, I mean, understanding, okay, maybe we are going to start one project and we are going to obtain this data. So just if from the beginning, all your employees, all your departments, think about how to keep the data well, keep a good track of the data, clean this data, have good structures of the data just for future possible potential AI to be implemented, you're going to save a lot of money. And also you're going to do things well. And as you might know, also a good question is the regulations of AI also, are the regulations also impacting these things? Yes. If you are, for example, in the EU or you work with EU customers, you have the AI Act, the regulation of AI in the European Union. And in this case, you also need to think about, okay, what things, what data am I using, and which AI, let's say, risks could I have? So maybe I could need to do specific actions. And if you don't know, for example, the AI Act, and I will be talking about the AI Act with different guests in the future. If you don't know, the AI Act requires that from different types of risks or potential risks, let's say, about using AI, you need to do different actions. And if you are, for example, working with recruitment, CVs, personal data, stuff like that, you really need to be careful about the personal data, about how to this AI could be potentially biasing the answers and discriminating different people. And you really need to protect all that environment in terms of regulation, in terms of data, in terms of everything. So this is also very relevant to work from the beginning correctly. That's super necessary. I can imagine that maybe if you are following all the steps now, you will be thinking, okay, it's going to be hard. Maybe yes, it's going to be a process, I would say. Maybe you want to implement something now, and the bad news is that maybe you cannot do it now because you need these steps to be done. And maybe you need to have data, you need to clean this data, you need to do this process that maybe it's not so sexy, right? Like doing an AI thing tomorrow. I know, but it's super necessary because if you don't implement good techniques with data now, you cannot do an AI maybe in 1 year or in 6 months. You cannot do it. And in 1 year, you will be in the same point. You are going to need more time to create this data flow, these data structures, and the sooner the better. I mean, of course, it would be super nice to have had this data structured and great maybe 10 years ago, because now you will have a lot of ingredients to have a lot of things. But it's better to have it now than in 10 years. Imagine that. So if you need help with that, I can help you. You know that I also work with these data steps. I could help you and guide you a little bit with these processes. So contact me and we can talk about that. But also, I mean, there are other experts, other agencies, other developers that do this work really well. And you might know, you might need to know. And I'm sorry, because maybe you want like 5 steps to implement AI in one day and be rich tomorrow. I'm sorry, you cannot do that. But what you can do is take action of the data you have, clean it, have good data, good quality of the data, and little by little building the future of your company, of your department, of your whatever you are working with. So this is my suggestion. If you have questions, reach me out, and I will be super happy of looking at your comments on Spotify, YouTube, and of course, if you know someone else that is working for a company, for an organization, that maybe these advices are going to help this person, of course, I would be super happy if you could send this person this episode to make this podcast a little bit growing. And thank you very much. If you follow me until the end, I will put the outro. So thank you very much. It's super nice for me continuing doing this podcast. You know that I'm doing that for free on my free time. That's because I really believe on sharing. So please also share with other people this podcast and make this podcast grow. Thank you very much. Bye bye.